All right, this morning we're going to learn not in MongoDB, and we're going to use letters or strings. And not in is very useful if you're looking. Not in will come in handy a lot, for instance, with categories. Suppose that you had categories of, in our example, it's going to be stocks, bonds, and futures, just as a hypothetical example. But if you had more categories, let's say 100 different distinct categories, and you wanted to look at 87 of those categories, not in could be useful to eliminate the 13 that you don't want to look at. So let's look at what we currently have here. And we currently have in our collection SQL server, one of the keys that we have is financial. And you'll notice we have stocks, we have bonds, and we have futures. And you'll also notice these are wrapped in quotes. They are strings. It's very important to note because when we call our find function, we want to make sure that we're going to specify a string. So we're going to look at the column financial. This is in our essentially our where clause for SQL people, our find clause for Mongo people. Find. And then we're going to look at the operator not in, and that's NIN, $ starting NIN. And now we're going to open up a square bracket, which is going to be basically the array, the collection, whatever you want to call it. If you're in object-oriented programming, this looks very similar to arrays. And we'll say stocks, we don't want to look at, and we will say futures. And then we'll close the square brackets and we'll close the curly brackets. Okay, so we're going to be looking for, in our find clause here, at the financial, so this key right here, financial, where the values are not in either stocks or futures. Now, if you only wanted to do one, even though I'm not 100% sure that would be good to use not in, I think there would be better ways to do that. But if you wanted to just look at one, you wouldn't use a comma. So notice how it's, since we're looking at two values, stocks, comma, futures. So if you're wondering about syntax, the comma basically is you're looking at where it's not in either of these two values for financial, right? So that's where the comma comes in. If there was 10 columns or 13, then we would do comma, quote, the next one, comma, quote, the next one, comma, quote, the next one, okay? And that would be within our square brackets. That's the syntax. And you'll see that we get the value back bonds. Now, suppose we decide we're not going to use quotes. Let's see what happens. And this is why it's important, because these are strings. If we just decided, we're not going to put in the quotes, we'll get a reference error, and it'll say stocks is not defined. Okay, so when you're dealing with string values like those values, you want to make sure that you wrap those values in quotes. That's how you do a not in operator, and make sure that depending on the values you're not looking at, you separate them. They're inside of quotes, and then you separate them with a column inside of the square brackets.